Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Imperfect Marketing. I am your host, Kendra Corman, and I am super excited because today I am joined by Cindy Chang. She is the person that's going to help you share with the world so that they know what you have to offer. Cindy cut her teeth on marketing for nostalgic brands like Kraft Mac and Cheese to Jell-O before leaving corporate and leaping into entrepreneurship. Today, she helps founders and creatives build their own brands from scratch. From helping an Asian woman-owned business break into the male-dominated construction industry to launching grief circles during the holiday season, Cindy helps business owners with unconventional gifts share their work and redefine norms along the way. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So one thing that I loved is the fact that, you come from Kraft and Jell-O and all of those great brands, and it mirrors a little bit with me because I was the chief advertising manager before I went off on my own into the world of entrepreneurship. So I think that the experience that we learn in the large corporate world really provides us some insights that we can leverage for companies that can't afford that level of marketing and insight. So I'm really looking forward to see what you have to share. So let's go ahead and kick it off. A lot of the people, and I would say a majority of the people that I talk to are introverts. And so getting them to share their unique gifts and having the world know what they have to offer is difficult at times.
Totally. I do feel like as I've gotten more and more into business, I have worked with a wider variety of founders and business owners. And it really is, some people it comes naturally to talk about themselves and market themselves, and some people it doesn't. So, yeah.
So what do you recommend for introverts and business owners in general to do to share their story?
So I think it starts with being really clear on who it is you're talking to. So I'll use myself as an example. I also identify as an introvert. And what has helped me a lot is being intentional and choiceful about what I share and when. And so what that means is, like, whenever I am, in a setting around people, if I'm, a co-working session, or if I'm in a networking event, or if I went to a conference and, I'm meeting people there, I try to be really intentional about who it is that I'm there to meet and who I want to talk to. And so for me, that usually means just honing in on who is my ideal client, which sounds like so basic. We all, obviously have probably done this work already. But it really helps to come back to that. So for myself, I help founders, entrepreneurs who are, for the most part, solo, or maybe they have a small team. So they wear all the hats. They're doing the accounting, they're doing the financing, they're doing the marketing. And then on top of that, they're actually doing whatever product or service, right? So if you're a lawyer, you're actually doing the law. If you're a coach, you're actually doing the coaching. And so you don't have a lot of time to do your own marketing or to get out there and sell because you're trying to run your business, right? And so I hone in on this person, and I just hold in my heart, really clear who this person is and what they're probably struggling with, what their pain points are, what they might find frustrating on a day-to-day basis. And I just keep this in mind whenever I'm in a room with other people. And if things come up naturally, we start talking about, what's frustrating with our days and what are the challenges that we find in business, sometimes the conversation leads itself there to where I can, start talking about my work and how I help take some things off of your plate so that you can run your business and not, feel underwater all the time. So.
And I'd say that my number one source of clients is people that don't have any time to do their own marketing. It's not that you can't learn. It's not that what we're doing is rocket science. It's just that you don't have the time, right? And I think that that's a really big insight. But one thing I want to go back to what you said and bring up to people is you need to know who your ideal client is. And one thing that you said that I'm actually going to challenge you on is that most of us have already done that work. No, we haven't. Most of the people I run into have not done it. They are for everyone. and they don't want to turn down any business. So they really don't identify who that audience is. The thing is that with your audience, yes, you're being fairly specific, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs with small teams, but they're working on their business and in their business. And so there's just not enough time. That's pretty specific. You can really talk to that person without being any more specific. And that doesn't mean that a mid-sized company is not going to come and ask you to help them with their marketing. That's up to you then if you want to work with them or not, right? And I think a lot of people are scared about narrowing down to their ideal client because they're concerned it's going to limit them on the business that they can get.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because I do find this challenging. I work with a lot of people who do find this challenging, and I myself sometimes find it challenging, right? Like, how do you turn down going after business? And it's not really about turning down business, really, because you can always decide, right? Like, if you want to take the business or not. But I completely agree with you, Kendra. In marketing, it's best to be specific. If you try to stand for something, you will be clear. But if you try to be everything to everyone, you will become nothing, to everybody. I always like to think about, for example, high fashion as an example. Been on TikTok a lot recently, getting served a lot of fashion week content. But this is a good example, like the Louis Vuittons of the world, right? Louis Vuitton is not trying to cater to everybody, obviously. Like, most people will never buy Louis Vuitton, right? Never. Like, they're catering towards a very specific person who's willing to spend, thousands of dollars on like a leather jacket. And their aim is not to market to everybody. Their aim is to be really, really specific, go after a really specific consumer. And at the same time, is the occasional normal person going to splurge for a once in a lifetime purchase, big anniversary, big, promotion? Maybe I get that Louis Vuitton bag that I've been dreaming of, even though I'm not like the everyday dressing Louis Vuitton person. Yeah, for sure. Right. Like, I'm going to splurge once in a while. I'm going to get that bag. And so I just think it's a really good reminder that to be a strong brand, you don't have to market to everybody. You can market specifically to your target customer, and you will also pull in other people who are not necessarily like your full on ideal client, but you'll still grab them. Like, there will still be things in your brand that appeals to them. Just like for a Louis Vuitton bag, like, most people may never buy Louis Vuitton, but some people, might once in a while, once in a lifetime. They'll still grab those people. So.
And they aspire for it, which helps feed that brand values even more, right? They aspire to be that person. And I think that there's a lot to do there. So that's very good insight and information. So thank you for that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about being out there and reaching the world, right? I think a lot of people, there was a meme that my husband watched back during the pandemic that he took a screenshot of. And I think it was Clint Eastwood, like sitting on a front porch. And it's like, when the pandemic and shutdown happened and your life didn't change, you're an introvert. And I think that was like him. So how do you get out there? How do you find and talk to that ideal client that you've identified?
Yeah. So the first thing I always like to say is know yourself and know your strengths and play to them. I think the thing that has been challenging in this digital social media environment that we live in is we're told all the time what we should be doing, right? Like, there's unlimited channels and platforms and tools that we can have at our fingertips, especially when it comes to marketing. Like, we should have an email list. We should be doing SEO. We should be on we should be on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. Like, oh my God, I don't even have time to like eat lunch anymore. Like, when am I trying to post to all these places? And it can feel a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. And so I always like to come back to just, what do you like to do, right? You don't have to use all of the platforms. In fact, I strongly encourage most people, unless you have a team that's like helping you do all of this. But if you're the one doing your marketing, I strongly encourage you to focus on like one or two places to really go all in, because the deeper you go in each channel, the more effective it'll be. So it's way more effective to, be cultivating an email list and really building that out and emailing consistently once a week versus like emailing once a month and posting on Instagram once a month and posting on Facebook once every 2 weeks. Like that's not consistent at all, right? And so it's much better to build a loyal audience in one place and build that relationship with them, nurture that relationship where that audience knows to expect an email from you and they know who you are and they know what you stand for and they have trust with you. That's like much more effective. And the other thing go ahead.
No. So I want to pause for everybody here. Cindy and Kendra have just given you permission to be on only one social media network. Okay, one. That's all you need to start with. Just one. Why? Because you need to go deeper there. Okay. Do not go crazy and try to be on every single platform. This is really key and important here. Okay. You don't have enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. So pick one that you're going to be on. That doesn't mean that you can't grab the profiles and have something there to protect your brand identity and things like that. Because of course you're going to grow and you're going to have a team and then they're going to be able to post on all those networks, right? But again, if you're going to be active, start with one network. Once you've mastered that, then you can go ahead and get another network.
100%. Full permission, like you just said, Kendra. I was reading a book the other day, or not a book. I was reading like an interview with one of like a panel of entrepreneurs and founders, women entrepreneurs and founders. And one of the women was saying how our brains actually have trouble integrating more than 2 changes at a time. And so like, think about this when you're approaching your marketing too. It's like, instead of trying to do 6 things at once, can you just pick 1 or 2 places to build that muscle, like get into that habit of showing up consistently in those 1 or 2 places. And then later, once that has been integrated into your rituals and routines, it's going to become like breathing, right? It's going to become like eating breakfast if that's something you do every day. Like it's going to become just part of your routine. And then if you want to add more channels later, if you're already, posting on Facebook consistently once a week and it's like feeling easy and then you want to add email, then go for it. But yeah, it's all about building those layers, 1 layer at a time.
Yes. 1 layer at a time. Do not be crazy and sign up for more than you think you have. I've actually interviewed another brand strategist on the podcast before. I think this was like 22, 23. And yeah, she's only on LinkedIn. It's the only one she has. And I loved that. I loved that from a marketing person who was practicing what she preaches, because I can tell you, I'm not active on all the platforms that I post on. I do not engage on all those platforms. And so why am I even there? Sometimes I want to ask myself that question. But then I love the layers, because I see social media as a tool to get email addresses, because that gives you the opportunity to nurture and engage with your list. And once you start to engage with them, you will be there and be top of mind when they're ready to buy. And I think that that's really important, because ultimately, no matter how much content you're creating as solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, unless we're selling stuff, we're not getting paid.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point too, which is that you can use different platforms, but not every platform has to be the place where you convert someone. So like for me, and again, playing to your strengths, right? I know my strengths really well. I'm really good in one-on-one conversations, not so good in one-to-many conversations. Like I'm on social media because like I'm a marketer, but it's really actually not my ideal place to talk to people, because I don't like feeling like I'm talking to someone and they're not talking back. Like for me, that's really difficult. It's difficult for me to stay inspired, to stay motivated. If I just feel like I'm posting stuff and it's like a black hole and I don't know, there's people liking and stuff, I don't know who they are. Like that's kind of hard for me. And I much prefer like being in a conversation like we are now, Kendra, where I can see your face and you can respond directly to things I'm saying. Like that feels really nourishing for me. And so all my strategy on social media has always been to get them offline and into a phone conversation with me, because that's really where I thrive. That's why I love to get to know people. That's where I'm really, really good at like understanding what their needs are and positioning myself as an expert. And so, full permission also to use each marketing tool and play it to your strengths. Like, you don't need to always be selling and converting in the DMs if that's not your style, you know?
I love that. And I think that that's, again, really important to acknowledge how you work. How do you best work? I am very similar to you, Cindy. I work much better in a one-to-one situation because 90% of the time my answer is it depends. If you have a question, right? It depends. It depends on who's your audience. It depends on where they're at. It depends on all these different things. So I think that that's, again, it's hard to answer that on social media all the time, right? It's hard to create the post that is going to offer that information straight off. So I'm totally with you. So this is fantastic. So let's think about as people are posting on social media and generating their emails, what have you found success with for your clients to get people off of social media and onto their email list?
So I will say that, just like you just said, it all depends on the client. And really depends on like what the business model is for that client. I have a lot of clients right now who offer high ticket services. And so it's really all about, for many of them, it's all about being in person, to be honest. And we'll use social media to extend an invitation that feels really low stakes and easy. Like, oh, come to this free meetup support group for, I work with a client now who's a grief coach. And so come to this free support group for, people who have lost their parents, like just come for support. It's free. It's easy. It's at like a cafe or something, right? People come. It's low stakes. If you RSVP and you don't end up coming, it doesn't matter if you didn't pay for it. But once you're there, you meet my client who's the grief coach, and you like experience the power of being in community, of getting supported. And then you start to realize like, wow, this is something that you might benefit from having in your life, right? And so then, maybe you get on her email list after this event, and then maybe you reach out the next time you feel like you might want some support with, grief or your mental health. And so for a lot of my clients, it is about, the first meeting may not be the one where you're buying and taking out your wallet. Maybe that comes down the line. So really it's all about building the relationship in stages. And sometimes that involves taking people off of social media, like you said, and bringing them into your email list, bringing them into a room with you. And you can really build that strategy, depending on what your actual offer or product or service is.
I think that that's really, really important to note here. Okay. So it's okay to take them offline, and the first meeting might not be when they buy from you. It is about relationships. Even if we're talking social media from LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, it doesn't matter. It's about relationships. People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And they can get to know, like, and trust you on social media. I get that. The first visit, though, is not always the one that they're going to buy from. So don't just sell, right? I think I had like 4 or 5 different people connect with me on LinkedIn, and their first DM to me is, hey, here's what I do. I can do this for you. And it's like, okay, we're going to disconnect. And because they're not spending any time in the relationship. And if I don't know you, I'm not going to trust you enough with my business to buy that service from you. And I think that that's really important to note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no rush really. Like, I feel like something else I've noticed about our world, and really the world of digital living, right, is like, you just feel like it should be instantaneous. Like, should be just ching, like you meet someone and just the money comes in. But sometimes it does take time, and like, let's normalize that. It's normal. It really is. And especially, again, depending on your offer, like if you have a lower ticket offer, like if you sell, a digital download for like $50, like that's a much faster conversion. But like if you're doing a high ticket service where there's a lot of trust involved, you're signing a long-term contract with someone, like, yeah, that might take some time to build up to that. And that's okay. And that's normal. Like, let's normalize this.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really good. This has been a fantastic conversation. I love what you have to share, and I agree with everything you've said, which doesn't always happen on the podcast. So I like the fact that you're reiterating the same things that I do on a regular basis. So let's go ahead and talk just really quickly about the show is called Imperfect Marketing, right? We know, you and I both know very, very well that marketing is anything but a perfect science. So the question I ask all my guests is, what has been your biggest marketing lesson learned?
Such a good question. And yes, I do love the imperfection emphasis that you bring to the conversation, um, as with anything in business. But yeah, rarely do things get done the way that you plan for them, the way that you envision in your head that they're going to come, to be. Businesses I've discovered is all about being able to improvise and like roll with the punches and adjust and adapt on the fly. So I think my biggest lesson learned in marketing is really to focus on what works well for me and not try to imitate the marketing that I see other people do. This is one that I think, am working on. So work in progress over here. But, it's really easy in our digital age to look at social media, to get emails and to be like, oh gosh, like I should write an email like this, or I should be doing these types of posts. And sometimes that can be really great. Sometimes it can be, spark great inspiration and ideas. But what I have discovered to be true is that my business is built differently from like, Jenny's on Instagram or from somebody else. And her target client might not be the same as my target client. Also, her personality is different from mine. Like I work, like we've said, really well in one-on-one settings, and maybe she loves to she loves to post on Instagram every day, and she loves to like go live frequently, and it's really not my style. And so I think that as much as I can do to not compare my own marketing to the marketing of others, that has served me in allowing myself to be really strategic about my own marketing and to actually look at what's working for me and what's not, and to adjust accordingly based on my own business goals and my own metrics that I set up for my business, rather than, some of those vanity metrics that we often see, like the likes and engagements and things like that. Because like for me, because I don't convert many of my customers on, let's say Instagram, right? Like the vanity metrics for me on Instagram don't really matter. For me, it matters like what relationships I actually initiate there and what relationships then come offline with me and turn into like real live relationships. And so these are just kind of some examples of ways that I've found it helpful to remind myself, like, okay, it's not apples to apples, even though it seems like it is sometimes, it doesn't always serve me to compare my marketing to someone else's. And rather it serves me more to know my business really well, to set up my own metrics for success and to look at my own data and kind of see what could be better based on my own business goals.
I love that lesson learned. So yes, you can be inspired by other people. You can be inspired by your competition, or however you want to look at them. I prefer to look at people outside of my industry and specialization to get inspiration from how they're doing it. But you don't want to be the same. You want to be different. You want to showcase who you are in your unique way. Otherwise, you become the same as everybody else. And then you're not going to stand out. You need to be able to stand out. And that's by being authentically you. If going live on Instagram every day is not Cindy's thing, that's okay. Let Jenny do that. And she can do her thing, which is building quality relationships. I love that. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining me today on the Imperfect Marketing Podcast. I appreciate it. I do want to note that we will have ways to get in touch with Cindy in the show notes. So be sure to check that out and book a coffee chat with her if building your brand and looking for a right-hand marketing person to help you figure out how is what you're looking for. Until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Imperfect Marketing. Have a great rest of your day.